Um, Thank you very much. For the record, this is Jerry Woolley, acting vice chair today, and with me is Commissioner Treese, Fye, and Snyder. Chair Harrington has taken the afternoon off, not feeling well, but she will not be here the rest of the day. So we're going to go into executive session right off the top.
That item has been moved till later this evening.
Oh, so we're going on to the proposal from the OSU extension.
Yes.
Well, there you go. You guys moving all the marbles. Okay, so Ann, you look like you were ready to go. Step right in and take it away.
Thank you very much. Ann Ober, I'm one of the Assistant County Administrators, and I'm here today to introduce our OSU team. We were here a few weeks ago talking about a proposal they have for creating a special improvement district. And the board had some questions of them in order to move forward. So they have returned to answer those questions. We also have some additional information that was created by Alex Barnett before he went out on leave, just to answer a few questions about the how we would create that district. So I will let the team introduce themselves and then we will go from there.
And just since it's on the record, I'm going to interrupt quick. We are talking about a service district. We are in the midst of budget, and so a lot of different districts and improvement districts and language is rolling just off the tips of our tongue. So we are here to talk about a service district.
Thank you. And once a city manager, always a city manager.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. Again, my name is Angela Sandino. I'm the regional director for OSU Extension. I serve Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas counties, and I'm joined by Nadine Menashe, our administrative office manager serving Washington County. And we're here to share an overview of the Washington County Extension and 4-H Service District proposal. We really appreciate your continued support and look forward to our discussion. Thank you so much for having us back. This presentation will outline our proposed 5-year service and staffing plan for the Washington County Extension and 4-H Service District. The plan, of course, is contingent on voter approval in May 2027 of a local option tax service district of 5 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, phased in gradually at 1 cent per year. One of the factors we discussed when we were here in February was the sudden budgetary influx that this service district would bring. From our current budget of approximately $500,000, which includes our $350,000 allocation from the county general fund, plus the generous coverage of our building lease to what would be closer to $4.5 million annually with this service district. Our approach prioritizes direct program delivery, ensuring that the resources are focused on serving Washington County residents. We have formulated a funding and staffing plan that would implement a 1 cent increase per year for the first 5 years of the service district, which would allow us to increase programming responsibly and maintain necessary flexibility to respond to community needs. At the same time, we intentionally would build capital and contingency reserves over time to support long-term sustainability. The plan's designed to remain flexible, allowing us to adjust staffing and programming based on evolving community needs. And overall, this framework balances growth with fiscal responsibility, positioning the district for long-term stability and impact.
The thing that is most important to us in this plan is, of course, that we are using tax funds wisely. It's also important to note that we would continue submitting an annual budget to you the same way that we do now, and you will be the ultimate deciders of how much to levy that year based on the budget that we propose to you, any unanticipated needs in the community that may need our attention, and overall economic conditions. Just as we do now, we'll hold on to some modest contingency funds, and we're also excited to save up for a building that will fit our needs as we grow our programming. On this chart, you can see an annual overview of how much we would collect in taxes. how much we plan to spend and save up for our own building, and how much we could anticipate putting into reserves. We're very aware of inflation and increasing costs, so it's really critical for us not to risk overstaffing and to implement a phased service model.
So this slide illustrates how services and investments scale over the 5-year period as revenue is phased in. I'd like to share a little bit about what we anticipate. So in year 1, collecting only 1 cent per thousand gives us an annual operating budget of approximately $900,000. And the focus would be on sustaining concurrent operations and maintaining existing programming. This ensures continuity for the community. We would focus on sustaining our current programming, which includes the staff that currently manage our office and fundamental programs like 4-H and Master Gardener. OSU would continue to provide the faculty needed for all of our programming, and the tax service district provides support staff and money for operations. In year 2, as revenue grows to $1.8 million, as we collect 2 cents per thousand, we would begin expanding core programs with a strong emphasis on youth engagement through 4-H and related efforts. By year 3, at 3 cents collected and a budget of $2.7 million, we would broaden our reach across the county and across key program areas, including agriculture, forestry, and community health. In year 4, with 4 cents collecting, giving us $3.6 million in our budget, we would expand geographically and deepen community engagement to serve more residents across Washington County. And finally, by year 5, reaching the full 5 cent per $1,000 of assessed value and a total budget of $4.5 million, the district reaches a stabilization phase, supporting mature programming, accounting for inflation, and maintaining strong contingency reserves. As you see in this 5-year plan, we will ensure responsible growth by increasing our programs one at a time, adding 2 or 3 positions per year that include educational and program outreach positions. All of these staff will spend their time in community-facing roles across the county. Importantly, a detailed budget will be developed and submitted each year along with an annual fiscal audit for board review and approval, which ensures transparency and accountability.
As mentioned, a critical component of our service district will be the responsible handling of public funds, something that we have already been successful at for years. By prioritizing a phased expansion, sensible capital and contingency reserves, and transparent reporting, we anticipate very low risk in operating this plan. These are the risk mitigation strategies that we'll be focused on, including revenue sensitivity, programmatic flexibility, reserve strategy, contingency protection, and transparency.
And then to provide a full picture of the options available, we would also like to highlight an alternative proposal that is currently under consideration. In late February, we had a conversation with our 4-H team about programmatic needs, which included a discussion about the fairgrounds and particularly the animal barns and cloverleaf building. In several Oregon counties, extension offices are co-located on fairgrounds with capital improvements supported through similar district models. We have been wondering whether it would be appropriate to consider incorporating certain fairgrounds capital improvements into this service district framework. And after discussions with Washington County staff about this concept, we wanted to share that option with you. This model differs from the phased approach we just presented in that it includes capital improvements at the Washington County Fairgrounds as part of the service district. Under this proposal, the full 5 cent rate would be implemented immediately, beginning July 1st, 2027, rather than phased in over time. This could allow for more immediate investment in public facilities, particularly at the fairgrounds, which serve as a very important community asset. Any additional funding not used for extension programming or operations would be set aside into a capital improvement fund to be used at the discretion of the Board of Commissioners. Under this option, in year one, the full 5-cent rate would be collected with revenue of about $4.5 million annually from the onset. Because spending ramps up gradually, this would generate substantially higher revenues and reserves in the early years. Year one alone would produce roughly $3.6 million in reserves. Year two, we would have 2.8 million, 2.3 million, year four, 1.9 million, year five, 1.6. Therefore, after 5 years, we would have approximately $12.2 million in reserves. These reserves could be used to undertake a building project on the fairground site. This option also creates opportunities to expand youth development programming, especially through enhanced 4-H and fair-related activities. Additionally, this approach could support a closer and more integrated partnership between Washington County and OSU Extension. We're sharing this option for your consideration and to outline the range of potential approaches and their associated benefits. We're interested in hearing from you about whether the board sees a vision in this potential partnership. We know that meaningful growth under this plan may not be possible with only a 5-cent rate, but if you'd like to further this discussion, we'd be pleased to investigate it further. So key takeaways for you today. The phased model I first presented of 1-cent growth per year prioritizes gradual growth in alignment with extension service delivery. The full rate model, in partnership with the fairgrounds, accelerates reserve accumulation significantly, providing greater upfront financial capacity for capital investment and contingencies. Both these approaches maintain a strong commitment to fiscal responsibility, with the primary difference being the timing and scale of reserve buildup. With that context, we'll move into the final slide.
Before we leave, do you mind if I
Oh, no.
just comment?
Yeah, and we've come to questions.
Perfect. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about how this last option came to staff and about where we are from the county perspective on this as an option. I want to first and foremost call out Angela with a thank you for looking at the fact that we've really struggled, especially around some of our barns and some of our other spaces, to find a capital plan that would help us do the implementation. When we first saw these numbers, we got really excited as a possibility, but as we started getting into conversations, I think Angela got a little panicked at the excitement that the county was bringing to the table. Because it does not generate as much as we would need in order to deliver on the master plan as it is designed today. So I just want to put some caution to everyone as to how much generated capacity this would actually bring to the table, but it could allow for some implementation of the master plan. We would need to go back to the master plan and look at the staged approach that was outlined in the original master plan to make sure that we aligned what OHSU would be using as a shared amenity to what we would be building with those funds in partnership. Right now, we haven't prioritized those projects based on that.
And yes, talking about the fairgrounds master plan.
Fairgrounds master.
I just wanted to make sure that we were.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just for maybe members of the public who may be viewing this, when the master plan was adopted, there was not an associated financial strategy or funding source to execute on the fairgrounds master plan. So it is very common that your board hears requests from community, fair board, 4-H, OSU, and other partners for wanting to see execution on at least a portion of that master plan. And so this does provide an opportunity for us to leverage funds given the sheer volume of county critical facilities that also need funding sources identified. justified.
And then the final thing I would just add to this conversation, actually two things. One, I did have an opportunity to talk to Deschutes County. I really appreciated the team connecting me with them. That partnership has been done in multiple places across Oregon. Deschutes is one of the counties where they've co-located the site. They're happy to come meet with us if we decide this is of interest to the board to continue down this path. The second piece is we have not had any, this is our first conversation. We are a long ways from having final information, and we have not spoken to the Fair Board. So in this case, this is a three-legged stool instead of a two-legged stool. So if there is interest for even exploring this concept, we would need to have our next conversation with the Fair Board.
Yeah. Jump right in there.
So I'm a little confused and I just need a clarification on steps here. So when we first talked, this was about OSU and the extension services that you provide. And the first part of your presentation is the stepped in process from 1 to 5 cents. And that still conceptually was around those services that you've talked to us about. Now, this last little slide says, okay, maybe we should rethink this and look at going to 5 cents, which would allow for a CIP in relationship to some of the buildings at the fairgrounds.
Over the first couple of years.
Or is it well, that's one of my questions. Is it ongoing? And also, I do want to take a step back and ask about what the process is to put this on the ballot, because this has to go, will be an approved process. Does this shift make it a Washington County proposal, or does it still stay under the purview of Oregon State? I mean, I'm thinking about all sorts of tax implications, what our residents see, that type of thing. So I need just a little bit more storytelling. Thank you very much.
I am happy to do the second part, but if you would like to start with the first part.
Okay. The first part being,
The first part is this over a 5-year span, or is this over a future several years of growth?
But I think the question really is, the proposals are ramp up faster, but then by year 5, you'd have the same amount. So then are you just using the money you collect in that first couple years for capital, or is there some capital component beyond the 5 years?
yeah,
Or O&M
Yeah.
associated with the capital.
I think the idea is at the 5 cent per 1,000 rate, and that would bring in approximately $4.5 million. The first 5 years, we wouldn't need that full $4.5 million. So that money would go in reserves. And after 5 years, we would have about $12 million that potentially could be used to put, like the Cloverleaf building, remodel, or some sort of extension location co-housed at the fairgrounds. And then afterwards, we would be operating on about a $3.6 million budget. And we need to add for inflation each year, bringing in $4.5 million. So we would have a modest amount to save for the next increase in improvements at the fairground complex.
So what we're really talking about is using the first 5 years at the 5 cent level from year 1 as an influx to fairground capital program. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. And then the other question was about the process that gets us to a potential for this.
So in the conversations with other districts, they have not had an agreement in place between the 3 entities managing the site. They would recommend we have an agreement. But to answer your question, it would remain an OSU process. You all would place it on the ballot as you would for any district that had come forward. We did confirm, and you have a memo from Alex outlining that the type of district this would be is similar to the ESPD. So you would continue to receive the budget from OSU and adopt it. But this is an OSU-driven process, even with these capital dollars.
And this is not the first time we've had a request since I've been on the board for a special district formation.
Correct.
we have not approved a special district formation
Correct.
during the last 8 years, correct? Okay, just want to make sure I'm,
As far as my
Like
memory.
if it's like the enhanced sheriff patrol district, there would be a budget committee.
Yeah.
The commission would
Hear the
allocate
budget.
and
Yep.
approve the budget, deliberate on the budget. Okay.
So OSU and other communities presents the budget to the county and they basically just turn it back to the Board of County Commissioners during the budget hearing process for you to review. They would be there with us for the presentation of the budget. They would talk through their programming. You would have the opportunity to give feedback in that process and at the end to determine the actual direction of the budget.
But to Commissioner Treese's point, this is the first time. It's not similar to ESPD because it's an internal. This is an outside.
Correct. Yeah, this would be an outside agency in a quasi-governmental agency that we would be supporting through this process.
The
Correct.
funding is similar.
Correct.
Yes.
And the portion of law that we use for its creation is similar, or is the same.
So it has to be renewed every 5 years.
No, this is a new district. So the 0.5 cents is permanent. It's a permanent rate increase. But they couldn't raise it beyond the 5 cents unless they did a levy, just as we go through.
What would be different? I want to go back to Commissioner Fye, your question. Yes, it would be a district that would be overseeing an operating program outside of the county structure. If the board would move forward, the voters would approve the district, that would mean that the funding source for OSU would be through the district revenue, not through the current general fund allocation to the district. So that would not be allocated anymore.
And how much is that?
Approximately 500,000 is what we receive, about 350,000 annually, and then Washington County's covering our lease, which is about 150,000. So combined, about 500,000 annual budget.
Our share is 150.
No, our share is the 500,000. So we're paying it through two different buckets. One is through Laurel's team, through facilities where we're paying the lease. And the other is through an allocation that we make every year in the budget process.
There's monetary and
Correct.
And part of
counting the monetary part.
and to take us back a few years, part of the reason we are at the place we are at, having this conversation, getting your board's direction, is because over the multiple years of budget cuts, we have cut into year over year the OSU operational funding to the point that this last year, the boards heard me say they're to own various county operations. OSU is at that point too, and that tipping point. This has been an idea or a conversation point, I would say, over maybe the last 3 years, but really last year was the tipping point to bring something forward and looking at other alternative ways to fund versus reliance on the county general fund.
I have a couple more questions. As I'm reflecting on some of the other discussions we've had around things like enterprise zones and the cost to our taxation and assessment department for doing this types of things, are those types of costs projected in this as well?
So those are administrative costs. We did talk to some of the departments about what the impact would be. And we can bring you back a more specific budget that outlines what those shared revenues are back to finance or whoever who's running the budget. With CWS, in that case, it's actually probably a slightly better example because CWS is actually, that funding source is paying a portion of money to the county for use of things like interactions with the board and our facilities. So that is something that we would still need to have conversations about, but it is a small number.
And the other question that I have is, as we look to agree to put this on the ballot, and I'm going back to the very beginning step. Do we need, I would ask, shouldn't we be talking to our municipalities, to all others that may be looking at what their options are moving forward for new revenue. And I'm just raising that issue.
It actually was a part of our last slide deck because one of the things that staff has said throughout this whole process is this is an OSU Extension Services process, which means they need to be meeting with the cities. During our last presentation, they actually had their engagement plan outlined, and we can send that back to you. But very specifically, they are making a commitment to do that interaction for this district out in the community.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I'm glad that that's part of the plan, and thank you for the reminder. But I would also say, when it comes back, it'll still be the mayors of the various cities that call and say, why is this going to be on the ballot when our levy's on the ballot? I'm just putting that out there, that yes, they'll have the input, but it'll be our decision. So ultimately, we will be in the driver's seat on this.
Correct. And the other thing to remember, well, to think about, I won't say remember, is that Angela and Nadine have been amazing about saying, when do you want this? So we had put it into May in part because we're trying to balance out things like this is the only place where we're paying for a lease for an organization that is not a county service. And we have been making commitments and steps to removing that from our funds because we've been having all of these cuts. So you'll see in the budget this year that we're continuing to cover this to buy the team time to go out and have a discussion with the voters. If we decide to push it, or if you decide to push it further and give your support, then we would need to have a conversation about whether or not future budgets at the county would continue to support and subsidize the programming or not. And our goal, sorry, go for it.
No, and I just want you to know that it's not that I'm not in favor. I'm just looking at what all the different complexities are. I know that the city of Beaverton was going to go out for a levy, and THPRD did. So there was some push and pull there, and I don't see this as any different in that regard. So that's why I'm raising the question for all of us to think about. But
Well,
this is countywide.
it is countywide, and we've also been having the GRO process in which we've been talking about other resources of funding for county services. This is one that would positively affect the general fund just because of the fact that these funds would no longer be needed, and that gives us revenue back into other expenditures. But it is not one that is as large as some of the other discussions we've had that would offset as much need that the county currently has. So that's real too.
I mean, the way I frame this in my own mind is that this is a very valuable program that's on a unclear, sustainable financial path. And this is a way to move the programs onto a sustainable financial path.
And like I said, I certainly support this. I'm just thinking about all of the implications as we move forward. And, I also like, frankly, if we're going to be participating, I like the idea of going to 5, trying to solve some of our other problems in relationship to our CIP and at the fair complex. So I like those ideas. I think that gives us even more rationale around putting it on the ballot.
We are beginning our meetings with mayors in the next couple weeks. We wanted to conduct this meeting first.
Thank you.
But we do have meetings on the calendar with Mayor Pace and Mayor Beatty.
Great.
But you should be talking to more than just them.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
The commissioner with the most cities
Yeah.
as well.
I like the collaboration approach at the fairgrounds. I think that makes a lot of sense and helps give us options to solve community problems in a more creative way over time, recognizing that's not going to be a full perfect solution, but I think it heads us in a good direction and provides some capital capacity. So I'm supportive of that approach and certainly looking forward to the engagement and hearing how the engagement goes. So that would be the other thing I would ask is it's not just doing all the engagement you're talking about, but making sure that both the team is responsive to what you're hearing and also that we know what we get to at some point hear what you're hearing.
Well, I guess from my standpoint, I'm going to ask, what's the Fair Board's role in this? And then, I'll wait. Go ahead and answer that question.
So the Fair Board has, and I'm going to invite Leah to correct me if at any point I get this wrong, but the Fair Board has oversight and responsibility during the actual fair. So any agreements that we make have to protect that access in perpetuity. That's the first piece. So they will be involved in any contracts or any negotiations we have with OSU around use of those properties during that time or ongoing, because we can't forgo our responsibility to own the fairgrounds either. That's a part of state law. So the next step of this is that we would go sit down and see where they want to be involved too. This is a conversation still. This is not a dictate. And so that would be our next step. I can't give you more until we've talked to them.
Well, I think as a member of the Fair Board,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good conversation. Fair Board is very supportive of 4-H activities. We're also very aware of the decaying properties that we have, asking for these kids to do things, outgrowing the Cloverleaf building for starters. So yeah, I think this would be a great conversation for them. And I would look forward to seeing what additional revenue streams would provide for at least some major maintenance versus big stuff like new buildings. So yeah, that would be a great conversation.
Well, and it wasn't intentional, but the 2 agenda items on today's afternoon, actually back to back, do provide insight into those opportunities. So in our next conversation, we'll have additional conversations around this property and ways that we continue to try and find funding sources for the maintenance of those grounds in particular. Last year during the budget cycle, we did use lottery funds at $1.2 million in order to do some of the needed improvements at the site. And TLT continues to be a source of funding for the fairgrounds in general. So all of those things, this is all a package deal. This is just one leg of that story.
Yeah, and
if I can just add on to Ann's point, when Ann says improvements, that is current maintenance of our facilities, capital maintenance, because as the board may recall, we do not have capital maintenance funds for Westside Commons complex as a whole that are sufficient enough to cover, for example, Wingspan AV or just the growing needs of a high use facility. And so those funds, I would call them ongoing capital needs that we need to just reinvest to keep the buildings going versus major improvements to the site, such as Cloverleaf or another building.
Well, and we had to tear down a number of the facilities at the site because they were dangerous and we did not have the capital to make improvements to them. So there are also, once these items are constructed or improved, we don't want to get in this position again. There would need to be a plan for maintaining.
Yeah, I think I'll weigh in.
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation and thank you for, I think you're doing the right thing. I think you're bringing people together and solving problems as you should. And here's a low hanging fruit question or comment. FFA. Do we need to mention that in there? Say 4-H and FFA?
FFA,
I was feeling a little bit left out.
yeah.
7th graders in college. Just calling that. I thought it was a low hanging fruit and a bit of a levity to it, but
Yeah, no, FFA is a wonderful organization and they're not under the umbrella necessarily of OSU Extension, but they definitely do access the facilities at the fairgrounds and they would benefit from any improvements there. And many of the FFA members are also 4-H members.
yeah.
And then they
Yep.
can fall under our
Yeah.
purview.
But FFA as an organization is
Not
not part of
Exactly. it's not part of OSU.
But we're going to mention the fairgrounds.
Yes, they definitely use the
Yeah.
fairgrounds and
I don't think-
love the
yeah.
improvements, I think, there at those facilities.
This comment is to you and Tanya. I saying thank you. Good presentation. Go forth with your engagement plan. I think it's you're gonna have good conversations, and I do think that this is a value. A lot of community members do value this, especially Washington County, and there's quite a bit of movement to preserve the agricultural heritage of Washington County. So you'll be surprised at a lot of the allies and the friends and the sympathetic ears that you find in Washington County now. I think there's a lot of question about like how do we preserve that culture for the next 200 years? You know, because somebody did it for the last 200 years for all of us here. So I think there's that bit of a foresight conversation happening. So, but the question I have for you and Tanya is a bit of the process to get to the May 2027. I don't want us to rush through, and there's a bit of an overturn this board happening. So I just wanted to not finish that sentence, but also put it out there.
I would recommend that we're back here quarterly or every 6 months, depending on what kind of information we have for updates. It's 3 months in advance of an election that we place this on the ballot, and you as a board would be voting around that. So we want to make sure you're absolutely prepared. When we have a new board seated, I think it makes a lot of sense to bring this topic back and present it again with the slides and the information, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So given today's conversation, when we do come back, some things that I've heard is, and I'll just start where we ended, just timeline update, also engagement update. Heard the OSU team speak to the engagement with the mayor, so wanting to get the board wanting to have an update of where we're at with that. And then given the questions, comments, and feedback we heard today, refining the budget a bit more, including that partnership piece on capital investments with at the fairgrounds.
Bringing new members of the board along, which you were just mentioning, I will just state that's going to be super critical if we think we're putting something on the ballot for
That fast.
a May 2027 vote.
Yep.
Yeah, staff are actively, and thank you, members, for lifting up that we will be welcoming new members to the commission. We are actively taking note the multiple, I'll say, onboarding and also commissioner conversations that there will need to be had, not just on this item, but the several items. So please keep bringing those up so that we can make sure to take note of that. And I know the staff assistants, Aaron Doyle, just did that.
Like I heard Aaron Doyle, and that's all about it. Sure.
I do think, though, that the proposal of 1 penny per year for 5 years or 5 cents all at once is different than when you start talking about money for county facilities. And so the emphasis would move from OSU extension and 4-H to this is a county project. That's my sense. Because when we start adding more money into this, or we start talking about what we're going to do with the extra money, and we're going to be improving county facilities, then it kind of feels like, okay, we're using this organization, but it's going to help ours. And that's a different message.
It is. And I think holding us to account for that is important. I also think that there's benefit to OSU for that to happen.
Mhm.
If I'm transparent, I think that having
2 birds in 1 stone.
correct 2 birds in a scone, we're going to feed 2 birds.
I left that at 1 word. That's the best I could do with that.
Absolutely. 100%. This is how do we meet multiple needs? And I think that the board has an opportunity to make choices in how you choose to engage at that point.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I look forward to the continuing conversation. There's a lot of details that need to be presented at the next time. So, yeah, we'll look forward to that.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Is there, it made me think of, we can move on if you want, but quick.
You got 2.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. It might just take me that
No, 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 it's
long.
not going to take you.
to get my
Let's get going.
Yeah. Sorry about that. It's been, the question I have is, it just made me think of when I heard Commissioner Willie, Vice Chair Willie, articulate that portion. Like, if a constituent asks in the aggregate, what are all the taxes being applied to? And the reason why it made me think of it, this is a phrase that I've heard for the past 6 years from Commissioner Willie, death by 1,000 cuts type thing. Like, how much is it? Are we going? So that could be a question down the road to answer, but I think,
Yeah, I think
But,
that's kind of what I was
yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
If he said for the next generation of information that
Yeah.
we get, it's going to have a lot more of that specificity.
And that's really fair. It goes back to also why when I was talking about our general revenue project, we had been targeting projects where we were going to see $5 million or more for really trying to prioritize the things we were working on as staff. This won't generate that level that we had originally said we were trying to accomplish, but it accomplishes something very different that I think is of interest to the board and to the individuals at the table. And so we didn't want to minimize that in coming forward. The timing is smart. But I hear you. It is still an increase on a tax, and it is still another cut.
Okay, we good?
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you very much for being here.
Good to see you.
Thank
Bet.
you.
Thank
You get
you.
to stay
I'm
right
staying.
there. Right. All right. Next up is the Transient Lodging Tax and ETV, Explore Tualatin Valley contract update.
yeah, and don't move anywhere.
I'm
Don't
not
go
moving
anywhere.
anywhere. This is my whole afternoon. So I wanted to start just by thanking everyone for the opportunity to be here. We originally had proposed bringing this forward a couple months ago, but because of timing on the commission board, we didn't have a chance to present. Some things have changed since we originally had presented the information through a packet, and so I just wanted to be transparent about that right now. The first one is that we have been continuing to meet with ETB over the course of the last couple of months. And I really want to thank Dave Perello for how he's arrived in those conversations and the opportunity to work with him to make some clarity around roles and responsibilities between the county and ETB. And a lot of that work has been done on our side by Laurel Brown. So thank you to Laurel and to Dave. Originally, when we had come forward, we thought we'd be presenting a red line of a bunch of changes. The good news is I think we're largely aligned between the two organizations. We're going to touch on that briefly today, but hopefully those pieces are going to proceed. We've also had an opportunity to talk about the finances around this and what the original proposal was. We have a lot more information we're going to present on that today. It's possible that even the financial side of the ETB piece is actually all but complete, and we'll talk about that in this presentation, and that we have some alternative ways of covering some costs for the county. So we're going to talk about those today. But I just wanted to call out for anybody who's been tracking this for a while, it is different than what we were going to bring forward a couple months ago. And the team's just worked really hard to get us here. So thank you on both sides of the table for that. And with that, Ann Ober, I'm one of the assistant county administrators.
I'm John Steyer. I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
Laurel Brown, Director of Facilities, Fleet, and Parks.
All right, with that introduction, I just want to start off with a different topic and related. This is transient lodging tax and the House Bill 4148, which recently passed. You know, there were some questions on what does that do for us as a county as far as use of our TLT dollars. So I learn more every day about TLT as a job. So I wanted to bring this forward, what my perception is of the House bill and how that impacts how we use our dollars. And so the policy question for the board is, do you want to consider changes to uses of our TLT revenues? And we might talk about this even after the next conversation on ETV, but just to bring us up to speed on TLT and the history of Washington County. We started in 1972 with the first implemented a 5% rate. So TLT in unincorporated Washington County amount would go to the county, and then incorporated areas of Washington County and split half to the county and half to the cities. In 1984, there was another 2% that was added. 1% went to the fairgrounds for promotion, maintenance and operations, and then 1% went to our Explore Tualatin Valley marketing campaign. In 2003, legislation required that 70% of new or increased lodging taxes had to be used for promotion of tourism or tourism facilities. So the next time we had an increase was 2006, another 2% increase in our TLT in the county, and that was allocated toward our ETV contract and the event center. And so putting that in perspective in our municipal code, this is from the municipal code 3.08, 170. And just to highlight, so the way the code reads on paragraph B, so bullet 1 there, 1/9 is dedicated to fairgrounds promotion of tourism and maintenance and operations of the fairgrounds. So that goes to the fairgrounds. 3/9 is dedicated to promotion of tourism as well and tourism related facilities. And of that money, 2.339 goes to our Explore Tualatin Valley contract, and 0.679 goes toward our event center debt service at the fairgrounds. So all tourism related for the first two bullets. And then 50% of the remaining amount after the deduction of the above goes to the cities and community split options. And then the remaining comes to the general fund that we can spend for any purpose. That's the current state of where the code is today. House Bill 4148 changed the revenue usage ratios, allowing tourism going from a 70-30 to a 50-50 split, so counties can have more flexibility on how to use that money in their county and cities. These new ratios can be applied to all the revenues we have, regardless of when the percentage went into effect, or it can be applied going forward. Additional uses authorized in the TLT revenue added some caveats there to also provide flexibility and more legal background on some things that cities and counties would like to use, be able to use TLT money for. One of those was to add a stipulation for resiliency grants for small businesses, restaurant, lodging community, primarily in cases where we have disasters or economic shocks. That gives an avenue to use some TLT revenue to do more than just marketing and help our business, our local businesses. The second one adds a definition to allow emergency or non-emergency services provided directly to the county, so we can use it for that. Some counties and cities do have agreements where they provide services through special districts, like their fire district or other districts that they use that money through, and it helps provide that legal backing to do that. The last piece directs a biennial report. The first one due on September of next year.
So may I ask a question?
Yes.
Instead of whispering?
You may.
That second bullet on the second bullet and then in the second circle below that, you just talked about the emergency. Would that include, for example, ESPD?
It's a special district. It would, if we were to use some TLT funds. It talks, fire districts, ambulance districts, rural service districts will be qualified as city or county services. So
okay. I'm just curious.
I think primarily the driver of that, though, has been the coastal communities.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not
they
saying
wanted
appropriate. I just wondered if it was if that would fall under there.
but that's how it got in there, because the coastal communities were saying we need
They're struggling.
we need this for public safety.
Resiliency.
And previously it wasn't allowed. So.
Not even just resiliency; they needed to function in the summer when
Oh yeah.
To handle the tourism.
5 times as many people as normal.
John, if I understand correctly, it's going from 70% 30 to 50-50?
Yes, so they can use 50% for tourism and 50% for others.
It's an option.
It's an option. Yes. So really, based on the last slide, my takeaways were as we talked about. I mean, we could change the ratios, have flexibility in that going forward. The pre-2003 grandfathered amounts that we have are less restrictive than the 50-50 even. Additional authorized revenue, we can decide to broaden it and use for these other categories that we talked about. I don't believe we need to change our municipal code to do that because it's backed in the legal language. And then just the other thought as we go into the next conversation on ETV, increasing TLT revenues, if we decided to add additional dollars, percent tax, about 1% increase in TLT is about 1.8 million TLT revenues. And so, well, the question was, do we want to consider some changes in usage of TLT based on the House bill?
And just to make sure that I say it out loud, we have contracts with ETB and with others. So we're not actually proposing, I believe, at this time, making
No.
any changes. But this is a change in law that allows for the board to make some decisions. We wanted to make sure you had the information and an ability to give us any different feedback.
And this also might be something where staff may propose a change in the future to solve a problem, but you're also asking us if we want to proactively seek
Correct.
some sort of change. That's what's on, just to make clear what you're asking.
Yes.
So I think the confusion from me is, and I've been trying to understand TLT since I came on the commission.
Welcome.
Me too.
So we've got 12 cents it is. Now is that
There's,
it was 10 and then I thought this.
well, we're at 9 cents. The state has 1.5, so 10.5%.
Okay. And of that, previously, 70% was reallocated. The 30% went into our general fund.
No, because it was grandfathered. The 70-30 rule came into effect in 2003. So our tax was implemented in 1974 and added in 1985. And so those amounts are not subject to that 70-30 split.
No wonder this is so hard.
Exactly.
So I guess what I'm trying to
When-
envision, you know that dollar bill that you use
Yeah.
for
Right.
funding? I need one of those. And the reason why is because I'm trying to figure out if we decided, since 50% of the money we could drag into our general fund, or what percentage or whatever that, however that worked, but more of it.
Right.
That would mean that there'd be smaller pie for the allocation to the cities. Because a fixed number is, ETV contract is fixed. The debt service is fixed. So that leaves the cities.
I think the amount split to the cities comes first. We'd have to meet the split requirement on the first 5 cents of our 5%
Okay.
based on our.
Commissioner Willie wants the dollar.
I
Dollar
just
split for
yeah.
TLT.
I just
Yeah.
want to understand the new allocation
Yeah.
with the 50-50 proposal that legislature gave us. So what exactly does that mean?
Right.
Because obviously it would be enticing for us to say, great, we'll use a little bit more of the TLT and maybe we throw in a penny and it's a $1.8 million bump. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of variables in there. I contend that, and have had this conversation multiple times, that an increase in TLT to a point doesn't impact tourism. Because I've asked everybody I know, when you decided to check into that hotel, did you ask them what their TLT was compared to the guy down the street or in another neighborhood or something? Nobody ever checks that. So it's just incorporated into the cost. So if we add another penny, obviously that's another penny. But I just need to know how this allocation works, and especially under the 50-50. So draw me out a dollar sign, John, and show me who
Yeah.
gets the
Okay. No, I think it's a good idea. I don't have a dollar sign, but I think.
Well, one of their
do that.
one of their questions, I guess I want to make sure we're clear on what you're asking, because If you're asking what the current allocation is, that could probably be put in one of those sheets.
Right.
But they're asking us a policy question about whether we might want it to look different in the future, which is where the 50-50 change would come into effect. So I don't think they can put that on a dollar
But we could have
graph.
what it looks like now and a proposal.
We could, if there was a proposal to, but that's the policy question being asked now.
And we're going to ask it, right? What I'd like to do is I'd actually like to jump into the next conversation.
Okay.
See if there's some direction from you about what the second dollar bill might look like, right? There's the today dollar bill, and then there's a second dollar bill that says if we increased it by another penny, what would that split look like, or what could that look like? And so I think that that's the kind of clarity at the end of this. We really could.
Or we adopted the 50-50.
Correct.
So basically maybe $3 we're talking about, but
Right.
is that right, Jason?
I guess if we were to propose something different than there's what's happening currently. There's the what would be possible if we went to 50-50. And then you're maybe interjecting a third thing, which would be something in between those.
No, adding a penny.
Oh, adding a penny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean increasing the total amount of collections.
Right.
Well, I will also point out that our amazing attorney on this is actually also present and has been very quiet through this presentation because Jason is the person who does our tax law questions here at the county. So we have been having some of those discussions, and I would invite John or Jason to correct me. But right now we are doing better than 50-50 because of when the funds were actually brought into the county. So us moving to what's now allowable actually is worse for the
When you say doing better and worse, what are you meaning?
We are bringing in more to the county under the existing structure we have than is allowed for under law in this change. Because when we adopted the funding structures, we were able to take a higher percentage at the time that they were adopted than we could when it changed in 2006.
2003. Right.
So it actually is even more cumbersome and confusing than just saying a 50-50 split.
But when you say better and more, you're referring not to the total amount, but the amount that is not fixed strictly for tourism or facilities, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So because the total amount wouldn't necessarily change.
If you think of the 9% as the dollar being 100%, what Mr. Steyer is saying is the only portion of our transient lodging tax that is implicated by the 70-30 percentage is the portion of the tax that was implemented in 2006. So that's the 2% of 2 out of 9. So 22% of our transient lodging tax is required to fall under that 70-30 divide. Whereas before that, everything else is grandfathered in. And that's why when you're looking at the 5% and Mr. Steyer is saying 2.5% goes to the county versus the 2.5 that goes to the city, like that distribution is different. And then like that's obviously separate than the IGAs we have with city.
So are we allowed to apply the 50-50 only to the 2 cents now? Or if you apply the 50-50, does it have to go to the total amount?
So I think under this provision, there's a question about whether we want to mess with anything prior to 2006 because we'd be undoing more. We'd be underdoing the grandfather percentage, but going forward, if we wanted to have a more than 9%, any future amount would be subject to that 50-50 percentage. And then this does go back, so we can readjust that 2 out of 9% to 50-50.
Okay,
right?
that was my question. Okay.
Okay, so
But Jerry, here's the key thing. This isn't going to move the needle significantly
Anyway,
for our county because of how much we had grandfathered.
And our contracts, yeah.
But cities are faring worse counties. in this.
cities? No, they're
They're happy they wanted it.
happy.
I thought
Yeah.
cities were opposing.
No, it's because they have more flexibility in what the money they have. Remember that the the tax is actually varies between like 14% to 17%, whatever Beaverton's.
Yeah, the
is
city's
the
on
highest.
top of that.
Because
Right.
they added
And they get all that above 12 and above the 9 plus 1.5, 10.5, everything above 10.5 is theirs. Depending on how many hotels they have, and it's based on where the money's collected. So yeah, they're happy. They get
They can now
50-50.
use it 50/50 instead of 70/30.
Right.
And they just started those increases probably 7 years ago.
So I think it's an advantage for them.
Yeah.
I think Hillsborough, the last few years I was mayor, added 12 new hotels. And then there's been a variety of others. If I could just make one request, we either talk about this in a percentage or a penny. Because when we talk about a penny of the 9 pennies, okay, that's one thing. When we switch to a penny to, oh yeah, that's 10.5% or whatever it is, then everything gets really wonky. So pick one,
1 unit.
but stick with it. It's either got to be pennies or it's got to be percentage. Okay.
That's the trouble I've been having with this thing for 2 years. So
I get lost myself because the explanation that I've got at home in my file
Yeah.
goes all over the place, and they use percentages here and they use pennies here, and
absolutely,
I don't know what I'm doing here.
it's complicated.
Okay, sorry, we can switch. Go ahead now.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. We are being asked to bring a dollar bill though, in which we show some of this. So we're going to work on that. And then there's a second conversation that's about to happen. Once we receive that direction, we can talk about next steps on that presentation.
So moving on, ETV conversation. So purpose is to provide an update on the ETV contract agreement. The policy questions today. I'll talk about the financial proposal that we talked with ETV about, and then Laurel from facilities will take on and the funding mechanism, and then Laurel will take on the tax associated with the contract.
The second policy question is 8 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
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 I just want to make sure I understand.
Correct. Yes. All right. So with TLT revenues have gone flat. So when we originally set up our agreement with ETV, we were projecting to have additional funding available to pay for an agreement that was put together with the city of Hillsborough. So just some of the history behind that. In February of 24, we authorized use of TLT to help pay for the city of Hillsborough to develop the minor league hops ball park. And in May, we entered the agreement with the city of Hillsborough to pay $8 million. Payments due before the June 30, 27. Then we have an interest amount for things outstanding after 1 January of this year. And then in March, we revised the grant award with ETV to help provide a cap and how much we would grant them in order to allow some of that revenue that's coming in from TLT to pay for the hops payments. Now with the hops, we don't have the money, or with the TLT, we don't have money to pay the $8 million from TLT up front. So we put together an interfund loan from our strategic investment program, SIP, into TLT to help pay for this and repay from TLT to SIP over a 10-year period based on interfund loan rules. In the agreement with ETV, we had set the lesser of a dollar amount or a 26% rate. At the time we did this calculation, we thought that it would be enough in TLT to pay for the ops repayment interfund loan. As the rates have, the amounts that we're getting in TLT have come down, we foresee that's not possible. So in December, Ann and I went and met with Dave Perello from TV to talk about a proposal in the financial portion of the agreement, which is paragraph 3.1. And what we had proposed was to make it more specific, going back to the language instead of 26% to 2.339, which is more in line with the code. 0.339 is about 26%. And so that was just a change to make it align with the code. And then we talked about, could we put in exact amounts that we're going to repay ourselves from TLT to SIP to repay the interfund loan for the remaining periods of the contract. And so in the packet, we had ETV's response. It took it to the board and talked about our financial proposal. And over time, the county has reduced the amounts going to ETV a couple of times. And so this is just another reduction in support for ETV. And so clearly the board is not in favor of that. And so as an option to go forward, but it is one option. So we thought we'd bring it to them and ask if that was possible. ETV has also paid money into the Hops ballpark project as well. And so it felt like they were getting hit twice. So we don't want to do that. So we've had some discussions on this with your board individually, and we kind of came back with some alternatives to consider on the financial side. So one is to modify the agreement, and we think that's probably not the one we want to recommend. The second option is to maintain current repayment plan to the SIP and just reduce our general fund transfer. For this year, for example, that's about $500,000 that we would reduce our general fund transfer, and that's about 10% of our normal general fund transfer from TLT. I think that's a good recommendation. Another one would be to adjust the SIP repayment plan and come back with the revised interfund loan repayment plan. Number 4 might be to make all or a portion of the house payment directly from SIP and reverse the interfund loan completely or in part. So we did that in 2 tranches. First tranche was $2.7 million, which we've already paid. And the second tranche is in the next fiscal year, $5.3 million, so we could do 1 tranche or as a cutoff point. And then a longer term solution, potentially to increase the tax, to add additional funds to this, help this project as well as our event center and fairgrounds. So with that, I think that was my last slide on financials. If you want to talk about recommendation now and then go into the other piece.
Are these like options or consider all?
I would
1 or 2, 3.
I think that they're all options except for one. I think that we've heard clearly from the board for ETV that they're not interested in that option. They don't have the revenues to be able to participate. So that would leave options 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I would also say that John's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but on number 4, what that would be is that we would actually just make a budgeted payment and there wouldn't be a repayment plan back to the county or any of our funds. So you could choose to simply
takes that hit.
Yep, you would just choose to make.
They're the banker. SIP's the banker.
Well, but in the one we said that
We would
we're not
pay
paying
them
it back.
back.
No, she's talking about the one.
In number 4, you would not pay them back. In number 4, you would simply make an SIP payment and you would be done.
Some of these are mutually exclusive though, right? We're not gonna, so 1 is out.
Yep.
Not all of 2 through 5 can be, like, some of them are opposite of each other. Okay.
Different options.
They're not all, like, it's not a pick and choose.
Well, and we're
Before we could do half of it.
you could.
I mean,
You could.
I'm just.
And you could choose to come up with your own options. These were ones that we as staff felt like were worth conversations. But this stems from a decision that was made by the board in order to fund the Hop Stadium. We want to make sure that we're true to that decision. And so we weren't present actually for that, and you all were. So we're here to ask.
And part of that too, I want to take us back to that time. There was clear direction that TLT was to be the funding source for the HOPS repayment.
With the expectation that it was doing this though.
100%. I just want to say, so that is where this changes the policy conversation, especially if we are using SIP or reducing the SIP transfer to the general fund, which means reducing general fund service. Like, so I just want to ground us in the why this is a policy discussion, because it was a, because this was a policy discussion to use TLT for HOPS money.
I heard. I was good. As I heard John, you say number 2 is a good recommendation. Could you speak more to the reduce the general fund, and then you've got parentheses, non-tourism funding?
Right, so the portion that we talked about, the tourism, non-tourism, or service, county services, general services. When we talked about our general fund amount that we take from TLT goes in the general fund, is the half of the 5 cents or 5% of the TLT revenues goes into our general fund, and that's about 4.7 million per year. So if we just took it from there, 500,000 would reduce the transfer back to general fund for other things.
So I think the reason, and John can correct me if I misspeak for him, I know he will. I think he's saying that's a good option is because it's still staying true to the board's original policy direction that you would be using the TLT funds for the HOPS repayment. I want to say the challenge on that does mean that it's less general fund revenue to fund general fund services.
Right.
If I heard you correctly, it's you're saying 500 less every year for the next 5 years.
For this year, next year, it's might be a bit more. It'll depend on how much TLT revenue comes in.
Can I ask the board that was in place when this decision, or at least as many members as there are here today that were involved, what was the rationale for not using SIP to begin with? Was it because TLT was available and made sense? Was there a specific aversion to using the SIP, and if so, why? Because it's one-time expense. So I'm just want to make sure I understand the reasoning for the original policy decision or direction.
I think there were multiple reasons, but and you probably outlined them. Keeping SIP as whole as possible for future opportunities, and also the expectation was TLT would be sufficient, over time to replace that money. So it was basically, as we've said here, it was using SIP as a bank and repaying it, and that was the idea. I don't think any of us anticipated the change in the TLT economy, so to speak, and that's what caused the regrouping. And none of us ever thought that we would take a hit on the general fund side. So that was the other caveat, was always protecting the general fund. So I think as we go through these policy questions, we have to keep that in mind as well.
To me, that's a good first one, which is that I'm not in favor of a solution that's going to reduce the general fund.
Yeah, and that was kind of our basic tenet.
Can I just add, I know the chair had made, and I'll share what she had shared at the time, just because she's not here, concern on the unfunded facilities in general at the county, and hence using TLT versus SIP, and wanting assurance on the use of TLT because of just the significant unfunded facility needs we have at the county. So why fund another facility expansion if we can't take care of our own? And that was part of the conversation as well.
I have a question. Number 3, adjust the repayment plan to SIP. What is?
Yeah, that was just an option. So we have even payment plans across the 10-year cycle. So if we decided that we wanted to make lower payments earlier and bigger payments later, anticipating revenues would go up, that might be one option to think about. The restriction is that an interfund loan must be repaid within 10 years.
So the 10 years is a hard,
right?
That's not a term that can change.
Right.
And then why does it, so longer term solution would require municipal code?
If we had a percent increase to the tax, we would have to change the code.
Because that's where the tax is put in law.
What if we were not doing an increase? Could we do longer term solutions? Well, then we back to square number 3. Okay, got it now. Yep, answered my own question.
So the 1% TLT increase, 1%. See, there we go using percentages. It's actually
We're going to get better about this.
No.
Anyway, generates $1.8 million. Okay, but is that a voter approved thing, or can we make that decision?
We'd like to come back to you with that. There's been some disagreement on the team. We've been working with Marina on this option over the course of the last couple months. And I'd like to get you something in writing from our attorneys one way or the other.
Well, the city should know that because the cities have done it.
I believe that what I was told by Marina was that it didn't have to go back to the voters, that this could be approved by the board. John?
I recently, as I was doing research in 1985 when we changed it for 1984, it was read and done a public hearing. It did the 4 readings, and then it was referred to the voters on the ballot in March.
Can I just ask that we come?
Yep.
Can I just
We'd like
ask
to
that
come
we
back.
Come back,
Okay.
just because I don't want to cause any more confusion. Percentage penny voters
Okay.
board
So-
approval.
But we can bring back in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
What our conversation was when we had our one-on-one with me was, I felt like we should pay out of the SIP fund the 5.2 million or whatever it is that we owe. We owe the SIP fund back at 4% interest, so we're paying ourselves. If the TLT is not sufficient this year, it's going to come back. It's just like the stock market. It goes down and it goes up. Okay. We just pay the interest rate for this year. Interest is 4% on 5.2 is 200 and some $1,000. And then with the commitment that it would be paid in full in 10 years, because that's our outline. That's as far as we can go. So we negotiate that deal, and if TLT bubbles back up again, or we decide to add one, then we can allocate that money, dedicate that money to it. And I think if we run the numbers, we can do this within the 10-year window that we have available and no negative impact to the general fund.
And then if the 10 years isn't going to get hit for whatever reason, then a future board would have to fix it, right?
Well, you
Or
can
they
fix
add
it by increasing the TLT.
Yeah.
Is that number
Or choosing to pay for it out of the SIP.
Yeah.
Doing number 4, but doing it later.
Yeah. See, and to me, that gives us more flexibility for the immediate until we figure out what this new 50-50 deal looks like, and maybe a snapshot of next year's TLT. We're going into summer, and I'm hearing that at least it's going to be flatlined. It's not going to increase. So let's just hit the pause button. Let's just negotiate a deal with SIP and pay them interest rate this year and see what next year looks
So
like.
you're saying 3, that's the selection?
No,
Adjust the repayment plan to the SIP?
3 and 4 combined.
Yeah, it's
Well, 4 would come up later, possibly. Right.
So can I repeat what I think I'm hearing?
sure.
Okay, what I believe you are saying is still staying true that the ultimate funding source for the HOPS repayment is TLT. Since we do not have the revenues in TLT, we would use an interfund loan from SIP. Create the cash flow over 10 years, using the 10-year window to repayments from repayment between SIP and TLT, and we would need to revisit that at certain periods of time to come back to the board if
If we're not going to get
if
there.
we're not going to get there. At the same time, continue to explore an increase in lodging tax rate, but that would be a much larger conversation.
Right.
Is that
Right.
what I'm-
Because it's kind of like I'm going to remodel my house, but I don't have the $250,000 I want to remodel it to. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a second mortgage on my house. So then you have a longer period of time to repay that second mortgage or a credit line, 10 years, whatever it is. And you have more flex over that 10 years. And that's what I'm thinking we would have in that 10-year window, much more flex to watch TLT recover or watch maybe some county stuff recover. And so, to me, it just gives us more flexibility. But okay, I'll shut up. Go ahead, Pamela.
So I guess the one little red flag I want to raise is, are we looking at whether or not we were too aggressive originally in our expectations of TLT? So I think I'd like to take a look at that too as we move forward, and just say, okay, because of that, we have to look at some alternatives here. And I think that
We get back into that.
well,
We
yeah,
could go 10 years out and roll it back and say, what's it have to be?
that's fine too. But what I'm saying, I'm just a little concerned that we've set a bar that's so high that we're never going to get there. We're just chasing our tails in these discussions on an ongoing basis. So
I also want to clarify one thing. I don't remember, Commissioner Willie, you saying increase the transient lodging tax.
We have that
As
as
it-
an option.
Yeah, but I don't remember you like, because I think do we need?
Not as part of
Yeah,
let me
okay.
clarify that, not as part of the repayment, the plan that the board
Yeah.
would adopt. But
Yeah, I don't wanna- yeah.
let's say separate action,
Mhm.
future
Perfect.
discussion, if the board would determine to increase the lodging tax, you could then use that additional revenue to pay off the interfund loan. So but that would,
Yeah, that's a
you would
bigger fish
use-
to fry because I
is.
think
that's
that
a
bill,
different comment.
yeah, a lot of the businesses were not. Okay. Okay. I think the two options you laid out is, and then we can come back with increase in future years. Yeah.
You have enough info?
I think so.
So I will just add that when John creates his cash flow, I would ask that he has review periods within the cash flow or in the finance call dates that we would be coming back and checkpointing where we are with TLT revenues, as well as just if the interfund loan plan needs to be adjusted. I also want to just call out John. John has done a lot of work over the last X number of months digging into and revising the projections. Commissioner Treese, I'm highlighting what you said, were we a bit too aggressive in how we were projecting out? And I believe at the county we were. And so John, I just want to John has brought that down a bit to expectations based on what we are seeing, what we have seen, and to temper the reality, and knowing that, Commissioner Willie, to your point, lodging tax does ebb and flow also within the market too.
Well, I do just want to say out loud, and I think I'm right, but John can correct me on this. So we've sort of combined number 3 and 4. We're
3 now, 4 might have to be
later. And I
used if we don't get there with 3.
correct. 4 will be higher at that point because we are going to be taking on interest. So I just wanted to say out loud, well, so we're making payments during this time. We're going to be paying on the interest only. That means that amount is still, that full amount is going to be sitting there waiting for repayment if we only make interest payments.
and we're paying these to ourselves.
Well,
We are paying these sort of.
We would have
let
earned,
me come back.
but we
This-
would have earned that.
I just want to repeat, when I had repeated back, I did not say interest only. So I would suggest we come back with an actual repayment
Proposal.
plan. I will say, as county administrator budget officer, I probably will never give you a repayment plan that is an interest only plan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
but
just not,
Thanks.
but I think the team, I would ask that John has the time to create what that repayment plan options would look like. And it could be one option, it could be 2 different options as he digs into this.
But the reason why I threw that out as an option is to Commissioner Snyder's comment of do no harm to the general fund.
So we're going to come back pretty soon
Mhm.
because we need to make sure that for the budget we can actually balance. So we will be back hopefully ASAP with a plan.
Can I ask
Sounds
a
like-
clarified question? The interest is a replacement of what it would have earned otherwise. Is that right?
I will come back to that because in our original interfund loan, we said we weren't going to charge interest to ourselves.
Right.
So the only interest that we're paying is interest to Hillsborough for any payment we haven't paid them after 1 January of this year. And so we were planning to pay the rest of the payment to Hillsborough by July of this year. 6 months of interest on $5.3 million, about $106,000 in interest to Hillsborough. And what we said in the interfund loan was we would pay back SIP, the $8 million, plus the interest that we paid to Hillsborough, but not
I didn't
charging
understand
ourselves.
that. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we didn't pay Hillsborough because we didn't know where the money was coming from. Is
We
that
wanted
right?
to get the interfund loan.
We cost ourselves 106.
We also need to check with our auditors.
I just want to make sure that I understand the usage of the term interest.
Yeah, and when we come back, Mr. Steyer, Ms. Ober, will make sure that we also have clarity, both what Ann had said, checking with our auditors, and also lifting up the county practice, because the county has done interfund loan transfers. For example, we interfund loaned before we received SHS revenues from the general fund. And there is a practice in place on how we handle that and what we charge from an interest standpoint. And so being very consistent in that we don't trigger audit findings. So
And this has been super helpful, but what I do believe we've heard today is from the board, option 3 is of most interest. So we're going to work on something to bring back to you that looks at what the payments could be based on what we are receiving. We will be here soon.
Okay. I'm really disappointed ETV wouldn't buy us our new BMW for $8 million to make the payments so we could drive it.
I want to thank
looks
Mr. Grillo for his patience and his adherence to the program. Thank you very much.
I can't believe we were in considering that, honestly,
I know.
that we would shift that burden to ETV, but that's not their purpose. So, okay.
Well, I think our team was trying to figure out how to honor
I get it.
prior
All the variables.
and I think Dave was a great partner and ETV was a great partner in their board. And, I think we got to a good spot, but I don't think we should beat ourselves up or our team up too much over that.
We always have to ask. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, we're going to move on to the scope of work.
We get one more thing.
Yeah, this one's pretty quick and relatively straightforward. There's no pennies and percents.
Hallelujah.
So this is the body of work that we have been working on with ETV since the original agreement was approved by this board. We very quickly realized that we needed a little more detail in that generalized scope, and parties all agreed that we needed to do some work to refine the language so that we had clear expectations. That work was delayed because we've had several leadership transitions within the county during that time, some version control between two different organizations, but we're on track now and have created a draft that I'm going to call the final draft. That is attached to this packet. So if you've had a chance to look at that, you'll see where we've landed. We finalized that last week. The key characteristics of the scope of work now is that we've focused it on services that meet the county's most critical needs. It is specifically intended to benefit West Side Commons with a marketing and advertising plan, and also to support our efforts to update that older booking policy. We also added very clear measurable outcomes with reporting requirements that come at a regular cadence that we will be sharing with this board to keep the board in the loop. And the next steps are to bring the final amendment once we have finished with the financials, to bring that final amendment back to the board for approval.
And based on today's discussion, we can do that also ASAP because we won't be making any further financial changes to the.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry. You guys have any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think to me, the importance of this part of the contract was certainly to um, define the marketing, advertising, and the booking policy so that we can have opportunity to obviously get more people using the wingspan and and reducing the red ink that we've got going there. So that's going to be the most important part about this.
We're really excited.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else? Are we done?
Are you gonna go? Did you get an answer on the first question on your first presentation?
Yes.
Okay, we are done. Thank you very much, everybody. We are going to take a 13-minute break until 2:45 as we are on time. Yeah, well, kind of
We're
on time.
15 minutes.
We got 2 executive sessions. We haven't plugged into this yet. But Jason's promised to be really fast. Okay, 2:45.
Thank you.
Jerry is streamlining the process.
That's right.
Ready?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are now back live, and just for the purposes of the record, item 1 on the agenda, the executive session for potential litigation, will now be happening after board and leadership communication.
All right, thank you.
Over to you, Vice Chair Willie.
Okay. Next up is Lisa Tattersall, Library Funding and Governance Process to review governance recommendations and draft agreement language. So, wait, Lisa, welcome back.
Thank
We
you.
missed you.
I know it's been a while. It's good to be
Except
back.
we didn't want you coming back
No.
because then we'd have had a
Have stuff to do.
we'd have the levy to do.
Yeah, exactly. we can use a few years. But right. So I am Lisa Tattersall, Cooperative Library Services Manager. We're coming up on the home stretch now for our funding and governance work with our city and nonprofit partners. Today, I'm just going to briefly review the previous board touch points, the goals for the process, the timeline through June. We'll talk about the governance phase that we've just gone through with our partners and what the collaborative process looked like, and then highlights of the draft agreements that were included in the packet. And then our policy question today is just what feedback does your board have on the agreements? So the process goals for our work together was really to establish a common understanding of current service levels and total costs, to establish base library service levels available for all county residents, evaluating and refining partner roles in providing base service to the community, identifying options for funding base level services, and then to establish metrics to allocate funding for partners operating libraries. And so we really did all of that work through 2025. And what we're here to talk about today is just the agreements that are sort of codifying all of that work that happened last year. This is just an overview of all the board touch points to date in this process. I think the only thing I'll mention here is we do have all of this stuff on the WCCLS website if the public wants to do a deep dive. Timeline, and I'm sorry the formatting is kind of weird, but I don't know what happened there, but I think it's still legible. Draft agreements have been shared with partners and your board. And so we're planning to return to your board after this work session on May 12th to review any potential updates to the agreements should your board have feedback today and or should our partners have feedback. After that, we'll be coming back on May 26th with an action item to hopefully authorize signatures so we can move through the contract process, which should take about a month given we have 12 partners to get through that with. And the goal is to have everything signed by June 30th so we can get funding out the door in July. So our goals for the governance phase that we just, and actually I'm going to point out one other thing on this slide. So basically from November through March, we worked on governance, accountability, and IGA drafting work with our partners, and that's what we're coming back to talk about today. So the goals for that governance phase were to define roles and responsibilities, define the decision-making process a little bit better, establishing what accountability mechanisms will look like in the future, and then updating our agreements to reflect current practices and policies. To develop the agreements, Marina and Company, which is the consulting firm we've been working on this for a few years with, they gathered partner input through surveys, and then we had 4 collaborative work sessions to shape the shared agreements. Marina then used an asynchronous review process where partners could review updated language that was based on their feedback. They could share information and get feedback from key stakeholders in their organizations along the way. Once all of the input was collected, Marina reviewed and analyzed the feedback to identify common themes and areas of alignment on the proposed revisions, and that's what went into the IG language.
So what is that big asynchronous?
Oh, not at the same time. It's a fancy word to say that we had a shared document where everyone could comment and see what each other's comments were. So you could say City of Beaverton said XYZ, and then City of Tualatin could say, yes, we agree with that, or Cedar Mill could say, not so sure. And so it was just a way for them to collaborate because we didn't have a lot of time.
This showed my lack of.
You should go to the library more.
He's a numbers man.
Gonna cost you. So. Okay, move ahead.
Moving on. So The process resulted in 2 revised agreements, and that mirrors the current agreement structure that we have with partners now. So we currently have a perpetual governance agreement, and we will have a new perpetual governance agreement. And the role of that is to capture the broad governance roles and responsibilities and decision making for the cooperative. And then we always have an accompanying agreement that's 5 years. And so we'll have a new 5-year, what we're calling cooperative operating agreement, and that's going to cover funding, base service levels, accountability, and network and data protection. And both of those drafts are attached to the packet. All right. So in terms of what's just kind of going over what's in the governance agreement, sorry. Yep. Okay. So the governance agreement is a foundational one that really solidifies our partnership for service delivery. It was last updated 20 years ago. And so it's good that we have this opportunity to look at it again. No governance roles have fundamentally changed, but we've really just taken this opportunity to bring more clarity to how we make decisions in this really unique operating model and cooperative structure. We've also added a decision-making matrix to help refine when a decision is a cooperative one versus a local one versus a county one. And then we've also just got more specific language throughout the agreement just to clarify things. And then this slide just shows what's in each section. In terms of the operating agreement, this has a 5-year term with the same dates as the levy, beginning July 1st, 2026, and it expires June 30th, 2031. This agreement is fundamentally about how funding is allocated and who provides which services with that funding and how. The agreement also outlines roles and responsibilities for library technology and data protection, as well as accountability for funding. So sections 3 to 9 update the language that already existed in the last agreement, about our IT, in terms of who's accountable for what services and to what standard. In terms of data protection, the updates in this section really reflect the advent of generative AI tools and also reflect county policy updates on data protection and AI. Sections 10 through 13 document the agreements that partners came to on base service levels and which your board adopted back on October 28th of 2025. We got a little more specific around what base service levels entails, especially around clarifying more around open hours and building closures due to facility updates or emergencies. Sections 14 through 15 document the agreed upon service boundaries and service populations that were adopted by the board in an action item on October 28th. And it also covers compliance with the Civil Rights Act in library service provision. Section 16 captures the agreed upon funding allocation methodology that was adopted by the board on October 28th. We've clarified this with a little more detail about allowable costs and how funding can and cannot be used for facility improvements. We also note in this section the fund balance target of 3 months of operational expenditures for WCCLS, which was also adopted by the board on October 28th. Section 17 sets the intent for shared reporting commitments. All of the parties are agreeing to participate in a collective reporting process to support system-wide understanding of service levels, financial stewardship, and fulfillment of the responsibilities in the agreements. And we will work through a process together to establish a regular reporting methodology that will be documented and then attached or, somehow codified as a cooperative agreement as after this process. Next steps, we'll return to your board at work session on May 12th with any potential updates based on your feedback or partner feedback. May 26th, we'll be coming back with an action item to authorize the contract review and signature process. And then we're hoping to have all the agreements signed by June 30th and new funding allocation rolling out in July. And so the policy question is, does your board have any feedback on the agreements?
Commissioners.
I have a couple things that are maybe, they're related, but I don't know if it's exactly on the agreement itself. Just one piece of feedback. Early in the asynchronous review process, I think there were some cities and/or partner elected officials who didn't really understand what was going on at that time. I don't know that it was necessarily explained very well. So just a process piece of feedback there. I had multiple contacts with people that were kind of like, what's going on? Why is like, I think their assumption was that the language was sort of done when it was originally sent out instead of I think the intended feedback process. So that's just a touch point for you for the future.
That's helpful. Thank you.
On the process and maybe for the consulting team. And then the other thing that I heard some community dialogue around in parts of my district were really about I think the potential of moving up the centralized collection work and just concerns about the realisticness of the timeline and that it's continuing a theme that we know certain community leaders and or library involved folks are concerned about. So I just wanted to share that with you. They're not necessarily directly on point for your questions about the agreements, but I don't know the extent you can give us a really quick update on what the thought is around the timing for the centralized collection. I think the community might benefit from just hearing that briefly, but I don't want to take a ton of time on it.
We are working with a consulting firm now on, they actually just completed library visits last week to start gathering information to start developing site profiles for each library. And then we are going to be working to start figuring out the engagement plan with libraries once we have those in place to come up with co-creating what a new system is going to look like. We are still targeting July 2027 to start the book ordering at that point centrally. And then we are working on staffing up. And so we have a new collections and technical services manager who starts on Monday. We're very excited. And then we're going to be posting 2 supervisor positions under her, I think May 4th. And so we're staffing up and building that expertise and then also beginning that engagement with libraries. So I feel like we're going to be good to go. It's a big lift, but I feel like we can.
In the July 2027 is.
Yeah.
So those positions are all related to the new collection process.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's all I have.
And if it's helpful, I am sure that Ms. Tattersall would be pleased to help provide a quarterly management report update, just an upcoming quarterly management reports, just so that, because I know collections has just been of interest to community and also the board, and that way we can keep you updated along the way.
That'd be great. Thank you.
That would be via email or in the formal coming to this next.
So as you may recall, the board has asked that I produce quarterly management reports. So this would be as part of that document. It could be an opportunity for you to lift up if you're hearing any questions or concerns. But that way we would keep you updated outside of a needed work session that Ms. Tattersall would determine with Ms. Kyle as needed.
Okay. I mean, as we get closer to that July date, more things will be obviously much more clear. So that would be a good time.
Yeah, and the purpose of that is I'm pretty confident that as we go through the to that date, there's going to be continued just questions just from libraries. This is just a way to keep communication channels open.
Yeah. Yep. Pam, please.
I just want to say thank you. I mean, this has been such a process and, step by step by step. So thank you for the work and thank you for the attention to the details. I mean, that's where we are now. And I read this at the library that the devil is in the details.
You saying you go to the library? So
Regularly.
That's what asynchronous.
She really didn't. She was waiting.
So anyway, but seriously, it is this detail work that will make this successful as we move forward. And I appreciate Commissioner Snyder's comments about making sure that as we go through these processes and communication, that we're all on the same page. And I haven't heard that from people that usually give me a call. So it's good to know that others are in contact and communicating.
Lisa, great job. Over the weekend when I was reviewing this material, I sort of was anticipating multiple cooperative agreements, sort of like governance agreements with the different entities of, because I read it and I thought, wait a minute, are we not listening? Because I heard a lot like we want our own autonomy. We're a library in a unique community, unique area. So when I was reading here, I thought, wait a minute, are we saying one size fits all model? But then I read it and didn't get that perception. But I am wondering if you're hearing like tailored sort of a cooperative agreement that is specific to certain libraries. Like, how do we uplift that uniqueness for their own? I'm all for streamlining processes and having sort of, something that applies transparency to the process, right? Like, it's if you have an agreement that is, similar to everyone, we're all marching the same orders, but I wanted to lift that and say, how are you centering the uniqueness of each library and the community they represent here, this agreement?
I think it's an interesting tension in our cooperative structure because we want to be providing consistent services and also honoring that uniqueness of each community. And I think one of the benefits of this agreement, like you said, is pretty broad strokes because it is really clarifying like at a large scale sort of governance, like how do we make decisions? And I think one of the benefits in the governance updates is that we really highlight which are local decisions. And so I think we're able to sort of clarify like these are cooperative decisions, but these are decisions that you local library can make on your own with your own governing bodies. And then these are ones that the county can make on our own. We have contracts and various things we need to hold to as well. And so I think that's one way in the governance agreement, which is like a really broad one size fits all because it has to be, right? It's like it's a governance agreement, but I think we do clarify those avenues where folks have that local autonomy. And then I think the same for the operating agreement. It's sort of like we need to have a universal sort of agreement around shared funding, but at the same time, I think we also clarify each partner's roles and responsibilities and also allow that like how they do a lot of that work is up to them. And so we specify base service levels, for example, but what exactly happens within those 45 hours that a library is open each week is really up to them. And that's where they can shine with their community knowledge and responsiveness. Each library staff team is super creative. So I think that's where we kind of create that space for them to do that. And then I think as we go into the central collections, which is something separate to this, but also related, I think that's the big thing we continue to explore is how do we make sure that the collections serve each community and are also delivered in an efficient manner. So thanks for highlighting that.
The other thing that caught my attention was the call out to Washington County being a home rule. With the exception of the Aloha Community Library, I think all the cities are home rule as well. So, the more you know, kind of a
That's
thing.
right. Yeah, exactly.
So it just put me on a mood to be like, why are we calling out the home rule when the cities are? But
You good?
I'm good.
Yeah. So just overall, I thought it was good. I thought the way you laid out your slide deck was good. Identifying the difference between the governance agreement and the operating agreement. And then I went to the exhibits.
Yes.
I didn't see the map.
Yep.
But, other than that, the exhibits were all gave a good definition of what you were trying to say in the slide deck. So
Yep.
that was good.
We'll have the map. I know we're working to get those maps ready for the final version when it comes to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. Everybody good?
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
We're good.
Wait so long.
Thank you.
Okay, we are in good shape. The next thing up, do we go to, do we, um, Jason, are you ready?
Board and leadership.
We are
You've got two Jasons today.
early. Shush, 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 shush. I heard that 4 times already.
You're not.
Jiminy Christmas. Don't think my predecessor baked you there, would they? So no, I was just saying because of the timeline and because we have a hard stop at 4:30. Let's take care of county business and then the board and leadership, with the exception of approving the draft letter response. Mayor Wilson, can we do that or do we need to go in?
So you would be adjourning from regular meeting into executive session, and we don't have all parties. So I would suggest maybe we start with board and leadership while Mr. Bush gets the needed parties here for the other items. And sorry, I'm looking at the team as I'm talking at the same time. If you are ready, I can start with my board and leadership update.
Okay,
Okay.
if we don't have everybody else here, I was just trying to be mindful of a hard stop. Go ahead.
All right. So I have 2 items I'd like to update your board on. So first is deflection program. Our deflection program will be the focus of a 20-minute segment on Oregon Public Broadcasting Think Out Loud program scheduled for this Friday. Senior Program Coordinator Danielle Farr will be discussing the county's achievements after the deflection program's first year of operating. As your board might recall, Danielle and her colleagues updated your board about the first year of our deflection program at your work session in October. OPB's Think Out Loud broadcasts live at noon with a repeat of the program at 8 p.m. Staff will also send you a link to the streaming audio with our media coverage in your email. I did send to your board this morning while you were in meetings, so you may not have actually read the email, but the email that I sent was relative to your board's elected to elected budget session. We did come into a conflict. One of the scheduling things, it's not on the county's radar, but guess what? It's on cities' radar when the League of Cities conference is. And so we did send a notice out on Friday that we would be canceling that date and revisiting dates. Within your email, I did send some potential dates. Your staff assistants have already looked at your calendars. I did hear back from the chair with her preference. She would, if possible, like to be there. And so her preference would be looking at May 11th as the first option and May 15th as the second option. The other options listed in the email are May 1st and May 5th. The challenge with both of those is the chair is out of the office for both of those. May 1st, Commissioner Snyder, you do have a conflict that staff said they could potentially reschedule. And May 6th, in addition to the chair being out, Commissioner Treese, you have ERMDAC that evening.
And I have a fair board meeting that, well, it's 4:30 to 6, so. Okay.
So
You're saying May 11th is the
May 11th, and I do want to highlight that does conflict with Forest Grove City Council meeting, so Forest Grove would not be able to be in attendance, more than likely. And on May 15th, the challenge with May 15th is that's a full day of budget committee. And the feedback we've received from your board in the past is full day of budget committee meetings followed by any county work can be very challenging.
It's also a Friday night, which I think is not a great time to try to be engaging other electeds, but.
No, it's also the second day in a row because Thursday is
correct.
Budget.
Yep.
Yeah, we need a little break.
May 11th?
Friday night.
May 11th.
May 11th. This sounds good.
May 11th's good.
Keeping the same time, like the 5:30 to 7:30 or
correct.
Whatever.
Okay.
Yep.
And it will be at
Good.
in Hillsborough.
We believe it can be here at the auditorium. So from a staff perspective, it reduces the amount of staff time we need to invest. So if we can have it here, my preference would be here.
Okay.
Okay, we're all good? Okay,
All good.
thumbs up on May 11th, great. The only other email I will draw your attention to is I sent your board an updated travel and vacation schedule. As your board may recall, I do end my ICMA presidency in the fall of this year, so my travel will reduce substantially. I am looking forward to some of the upcoming convenings that I will be attending in my role as ICMA past president that I do think can feel strongly benefit here, Washington County, especially the convening of the Big Seven leadership focused on federalism and the impacts of federal policy on states and local government. And that'll be coming up within this next month. And that concludes my update.
Okay. Jason?
All right. So the county council side, I think most of you know this is my first time being down here doing leadership communication.
You're doing great.
We never talk enough about tax things in the leadership communication.
Now's your
So-
chance.
Exactly. So I did want to mention one thing that I've noticed in tax this year. As many of you know, we have an annual process where at the beginning of the year, people petition the values of their property in a form we call PVAB, which is the Property Evaluations Appeals Board, which used to be BOPTA. The staff did a great job this year, like always. After that happens in February, we start getting appeals to the regular division of tax court, which the staff then work with county counsel's office through the remainder of the year. This year, we ended up getting a much larger share of about 35 appeals for commercial properties, primarily office buildings, which is about a third more than normal, while we end up having no residential appeals and only a few industrial appeals that are going to the magistrate division on the value side. So that is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past, and maybe there's some economic reasons why that's the case, but it's just something to keep an eye on. Beyond that, our office recently we had another paralegal that just started working this week. Her name is Jennifer Trejo. Eventually, you'll probably run into her. It's not exactly clear what sections within the office she's going to work, but we're really excited to have her there as well. And that's it for me. Thanks.
All right. Who's next? Don't be shy.
I can go first. Last Tuesday, I was out at the city of Hillsborough and the Hops to celebrate the new ballpark with many of you here. It was a great event. And it is, I was reflecting on that as we went through our discussion today on TLT and the 8 million. It was well spent. We just have to figure out the processes to account for those dollars. Wednesday morning, we had a WSI executive committee member meeting, and that was to select the new executive director for WSI. And I am spacing on her last name. Her first name is Miriam. She comes from Vancouver, and that was accepted by Workforce with Work Systems Inc. And Andrew McGough is very happy that she's there as well. And that process was also led by Heather Gans. Just want to tell you that I'm in Heather Gans overload a bit here. I also had a Metro Regional Solutions Advisory Committee meeting that afternoon. And at that meeting, Governor Kotek attended along with co-chair Knope of the Oregon Prosperity Council. We talked about a lot of different issues. I brought up a couple issues that I wanted to highlight here. we talked about housing and how important that is. Workforce development was another key point, and I did put a pitch into the governor's office to pay attention to the potential merger between the Clackamas County Workshed Organization and our Workshed Organization for future efficiencies. There was discussion about a little explanation about the data center and the advisory committee that's in place there. It was really more a listening session for the governor to hear what's on the minds of the people that are participate in that Regional Solutions Advisory Committee. I also have my application in for renewal, if you will, and it looks like it's being approved through AOC, and that's the process that we follow. I believe that let's see. I'm going to be attending the Springville Road Celebration and ribbon cutting this Friday. I'm also meeting Friday morning with Angela Crowley-Koch of ORSSIA, the Oregon Solar and Storage Industries Association, Aaron Eddy of SunPath Services, and Anna Stevens of A&R Solar to discuss residential solar permitting. And that discussion has been facilitated by Representative Ken Helm. And it's more of just bringing issues to me to, in turn, talk with the rest of you about. So I'll be updating you after that. I will be attending Kaleidoscope on Wednesday night for community action. I know Commissioner Fye is the board member now. Commissioner Snyder has been the board member. I've been the board member, and I know Jerry, you've been very active in that organization as well. So I will be attending that. We have I have an upcoming meeting with RSAC, which is not RSAC, excuse me, RWAC, which is the Regional Waste Advisory Committee, and we'll be looking at upcoming fee adjustments. So this is the first of our discussions, and I'll be meeting with our internal team before that. So thank you.
All right.
I can go. Last Wednesday, the chair, Commissioner Fye, and myself all participated in the local mental health authority interview that I think went very well, and we heard feedback later that I think our teams did really well, and that OHA was very complimentary of the work that our teams are doing. It was nice to be able to support that a little bit. Last Wednesday, I also had a planned lunch with Clackamas County Commissioner Savas and some of our transportation leaders, along with the Clackamas County transportation leaders. Again, we're working on trying to help get the Region 1 Act where it needs to be in its work. And I actually, in the next hour, there's going to be a meeting with ODOT Region 1 staff, with our staff team and the Clackamas County staff team, and suggesting that they operate a little bit more. We're using examples from the Northwest Act on how we might be a little more functional in some of the work that we're doing. So work's happening on that. Just wanted to make sure you all had some insight to that. Last Wednesday also, Commissioner Willie and I attended hopefully our final SHS onboarding session for the new work ahead. Last Thursday, I had a check-in with our staff about one of the battery storage projects that they had some questions for me about that's proposed in my district. Also, last Thursday, had a meeting and check-in with the Tualatin River Keepers Executive Director and some of their staff. And then last Thursday afternoon, I mentioned this last week, but I actually have it in my hand now. From the Juvenile Crime Prevention Advisory Committee, we have the final report on our youth justice system review. If someone wants to take a look at that, we can certainly get you copies of it. Lots of great suggestions, and I think our team is taking a very practical approach to figuring out what can be implemented quickly, what things should be considered, and maybe some things that don't align with our approach, but we thank them for their feedback. So things are in lots of different categories there, and I would encourage you to take a look if you have questions. Last Friday, I attended the AOC Public Safety and Veterans Steering Committee, and we had a joint meeting with the Health and Human Services Committee at the beginning, and there was an overlapping topic that I think both Commissioner Fye and I can speak to, but just so everybody on the commission is aware, there's this continued emerging issue around the sort of risk of doing secure transports and having law enforcement staff involved in some of that when it's not a criminal matter. And so there's not necessarily solutions there per se, but the identification of issues and the seeking of hopefully solutions from the legislature in the future. Last night we had our budget committee orientation. Wednesday, so tomorrow, I have a WEA board meeting, and then in the evening I will not be at Kaleidoscope because I'm going to be presenting the vehicle registration fee presentation at the King City City Council, which they specifically asked for, and that was the date they could accommodate it. So that's where I will be doing our work. Thursday, I have a meeting with the Washington County Haulers Association, and then a prep session for the AOC presentation I'm going to be representing all of us at on the following Friday. There's then an audit committee meeting tomorrow evening, or Thursday evening, excuse me. Friday, I do plan to be at the Springville Road celebration. And then Saturday is the event I mentioned a couple weeks ago at St. Anthony Church in Tigard related to immigration and housing. So I will be there on Saturday. All I got.
That was a lot. Busy time. I'll go next. Okay. I was just gonna jump in. Yeah, thank you. So last week, I did have my continuation of the monthly meeting with the Beaverton School District social workers. And then the local mental health authority interview, that was quite interesting. I do agree with you, Commissioner Snyder, that I think it went well. The three of us contributed, all of us. Washington County being the mental health authority and what we think and what are some challenges and opportunities. So next, I had a really great meeting with the executive director of Tualatin River Keepers, Glenn Fee, more on clean water services side. But that was a really good meeting, and I haven't sat down with him for a while, so that was good. Good discussion. And then last week was the Public Health Week celebration, and I had the honor of speaking at that event, and great turnout. The staff, very well organized, very well put together, and the community showed up in critical numbers. So I thought it was a great event as usual. I wasn't able to stay for the award ceremony section of it, so I kind of missed that one. I was there for last year, and it was quite fun actually. But congratulations to all the award winners and everybody that was nominated, and everybody who showed up to support the winners. So that was a really great event. The AOC part, I agree with you, Commissioner Snyder, that it was an overlapping discussion, but a really well organized and well put together discussion this month for Health and Human Services Steering Committee. The topic on that side was homelessness prevention and response, state of the state, sort of the state of the counties, like what the budget, the policy and budget look ahead looks like with Oregon Housing and Community Services. So the director, Andrea Bell, showed up and really gave a holistic overview and provided some insights on that topic. And then I actually logged out on the law enforcement transport of an individual for civil commitments, investigation and services discussion a little bit, but that was also quite fascinating in my opinion. And I think I tracking down the recording for that one. So I'll share it with the rest of the board as well. And then yesterday was WCCC meeting, and that there's nothing to report there in terms of everything
sort of, there's no board, something to weigh in. But I did want to provide you some, because the staff shared this with WCCC, which is that Washington County Transportation Committee staff leaders are applying a grant application. They're putting in a grant application for the Federal Safe Streets for All grant program. And it's in consideration for a potential grant application to the federal Safe Streets for All program. And this is, I don't think I want to put the number out there, how much they're applying, but it's between $25 million, somewhere there. My notes say 35.8, but I think we fixed that yesterday. So it's a critical number, and this is for the project of 170th Avenue improvements. Improvement to 170th include 3-lane complete street improvements with pedestrian and bicycle improvements on both sides, and then a potential new bridge over Beaverton Creek adjacent to the Tualatin Hills Nature Park. If you live in District 1, I think you probably know where those exact areas are, or if you traveled. And then the connection to the pedestrian improvement on Merlo Road as part of the Beaverton Creek Trail. So more to come. I think this project really generated more conversation at the WCCC, and the staff did a really good job of managing that discussion. So I just share that because that's a potential grant that we would have to, as a board, approve, and then it would go to WCCC for considerations. Let's see. Oh my goodness, 19 seconds. This week, I won't repeat all the places we're going to be together, but just to say that right after this, 5:30, I do have the Public Health Advisory. So Commissioner Willie, you should finish this meeting on time so that I can go home and log in on that one. And then this week, quickly, I have JPAC. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that there's going to be a new chair on JPAC now. Councilor Gonzalez is managing another committee. They had to reshuffle some things, and so there's a new change. So JPAC's chair now is Councilor, I almost called her Commissioner, Councilor Christine Lewis is the new JPAC chair as of this week. So I just wanted to share that. Nothing board related discussions on that part. Sorry for the long-winded there.
All right. Well, I'll just follow up what Pam said about the Hops game. It was a great night for baseball, and especially since my grandson got to throw out one of the first pitches. I have videos and pictures if you'd like me to entertain you.
Strike.
I was going to say he threw a strike.
Yeah, and it was right. It was hot.
He was so wired.
And he was 11.
Nothing compared to Mayor Pace's performance, though.
Or Senator Salmon's. Yeah. Well, anyway. So she would agree with that. I'm sure that assessment. Yep.
Let's just say fourth through the only strike.
And that's why Ford pitched, not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had our second onboarding meeting, and yes, that's the last one. The next one is next week. I got a briefing for what is on the agenda next week. It is they have quite a list of items that we're going to be talking about. Key performance indicators, key efficiency indicators, as well as the local plans. There was just a whole litany of stuff that we're going to be talking about.
Ambitious.
It is ambitious. There was no rock that they're not going to uncover and have the conversation about. It's going to be interesting. I was in Columbia County last week for the Colpack and Northwest Act. In Colpack, we had our usual conversations about what's on their top of their list and some grants and things like that. But it was interesting that we were at the Columbia County PUD, and the executive director used to be on staff at Forest Grove. Dave, and I'll think of his last name in a minute. But he was giving us a little bit of a snapshot on the challenges that they're having with water and with energy, electricity specifically. And he was just making us aware of the fact that there is an environmental group that is continuing to talk about removing 3 dams on the Columbia, and those 3 dams generate 31% of our regional electricity. So that would be a hard thing to replace. And then Northwest Act. Northwest Act, it was a great conversation. Our challenge this time was because there's 4 counties, of course. That would be Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, and Western Washington County. And it was our objective to identify 5 projects to put before ODOT, or actually the OTC, for consideration for money that we don't even know how much it is. So we don't know how much money we've got, but we put that out there. 3 of the 5 they designated Highway 6. So this is that's kind of the collaboration mentality that we have in Northwest Act, is that everybody kind of looks at the big picture. Highway 6 certainly benefits Tillamook County and Washington County more than Clatsop and Columbia, but they realize it's a big deal. If when Highway 6 was closed for a period of time this winter, there are no alternative routes. And we now have some truck drivers who are refusing to drive over Highway 6 because they don't trust it. So that's a high criteria. Let's see, we had Bank City Council. I'm going there tonight to talk with Jessica about the vehicle registration fee, and then also to give my semi-annual update that I do. Kaleidoscope on as well on, when is that, Wednesday? And I have one more item. The Thursday, the Glencoe High School students have a Veterans Day called Living History, and I'm going to be speaking at that for a few minutes on Wednesday. And then, Friday, last night at the Forest Grove City Council, new police chief David Marcelli was sworn in. Marcelli, and he's one of our own. They stole him from county, but anyway, pleased and happy about that. That's all I got. So, okay, next item is
No, before the letter.
I don't know what I do with 7 mothers in this room. I tell you. Hey, Erin's got the letter up. She's packing it. Let me go through this. This is not my first rodeo.
Okay. Trying to be helpful.
He's been a mayor for 8 years. Just so we're on the record.
But I've also worked
Leonard,
with
do
him
you want
for
to say
8
something
years.
about that? Huh? Does anybody have any changes, modifications? Are we okay with the letter? There we go. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We're going to adjourn into executive session, provided I get a vote from all of my consultants. Is that okay, Jason? Can I do
I
that?
think you should do a roll call vote with them.
Make sure I've got a majority. Okay. We're good, right?
You say so.
We're going into executive session.
Well, we have to
All those in are not pertinent to the executive session. We are going to, I entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to ORS 192-192.660 to F and H for the purpose of discussing exempt records and potential litigation. Hope I got that right.
So moved.
Correct. Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Yep, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Jason.
You're going into executive session. I need 1 minute to grab a couple people outside.